Imagine standing on the edge of a steel platform, miles from shore, surrounded by an endless, churning sea. The wind howls, carrying whispers that don't belong to the waves. You're alone, but you feel eyes watching from the dark water below. What if the ocean itself was hiding something? Something that swallowed an entire oil rig crew without a trace? Welcome to a night of chilling truths, where we uncover the unbelievable horrors behind the missing oil rig crew. These aren't just stories. They're warnings. And once you hear them, you'll never look at the sea the same way again. The ocean has always been a place of mystery. It's vast, untamed, and deeper than our darkest fears. For centuries, sailors spoke of shadows moving beneath the waves, of voices calling from the deep. But in the modern world, we thought we'd conquered the sea. Oil rigs, those towering giants of steel, were supposed to be our triumph. Yet, in the summer of 2023, something happened on a rig called Horizon's Edge. An entire crew vanished. No distress calls. No wreckage. Just silence. The official reports claimed a storm, but the skies were clear that night. What could erase dozens of lives without a whisper? Let's dive into the first tale, where the truth begins to surface. The Horizon's Edge wasn't just any rig. It stood in the North Atlantic, a fortress against a wild ocean. The crew was experienced, hand-picked for their grit. They knew the risks of working miles from land, but nothing prepared them for what came. It started with a logbook, found drifting in a lifeboat weeks later. The entries were normal at first, routine checks, weather updates. Then, the writing changed. The last page held a single sentence, scrawled in trembling ink. "The water is watching us." What did they see out there? Why did the logbook survive when the crew didn't? The answer lies in a forgotten warning, one the company buried deep. Years before, a geologist had flagged the site where Horizon's Edge was built. His report mentioned strange readings, magnetic pulses from the ocean floor. He called it unnatural interference. The company ignored him. They drilled anyway. But the crew started noticing things. Tools went missing. Radios crackled with static that sounded like whispers. One night, a welder swore he saw a shadow move across the deck. Too tall, too thin to be human. He laughed it off, but his hands shook as he told the story. The next day, he was gone. Not transferred, not evacuated, just gone. The crew searched every inch of the rig. Nothing. Only his boots remained, sitting neatly by the railing, as if he'd stepped right out of them. The whispers grew louder after that. At night, the crew heard them through the walls, soft, rhythmic, like a chant from the deep. They checked the sonar. It showed nothing but empty water. Yet the sound resisted, seeping into their dreams. One worker, a mechanic named Clara, kept a journal. She wrote about a dream where the ocean opened like a mouth, pulling the rig down. She described a shape in the water, massive and shifting, with eyes that glowed like oil slicks. Clara's last entry was simple. "It knows my name." Her bunk was empty the next morning. The journal lay open, its pages soaked in seawater. How did the water get inside a seal cabin? The company sent investigators. They found the rig abandoned, lights still flickering, coffee cups warm on the tables. But something else caught their eye. A strange symbol was scratched into the steel deck, jagged and uneven, like it was carved in a hurry. It wasn't in any language they recognized. An old fisherman, brought in to consult, froze when he saw it. He'd heard stories from his grandfather about a mark like that, tied to an ancient tale of the sea claiming what was owed. He refused to say more, leaving the investigators with a warning, "Don't go back out there." But the company didn't listen. They sent a new crew. And that's when the second story begins. If that tale sent a shiver through you, hold tight. The next one pulls you deeper into the abyss. The new crew arrived on Horizon's Edge, expecting answers. Instead, they found something waiting. It started with the radios. They'd pick up signals, brief, garbled voices speaking in a language no one could place. The crew thought it was interference from another rig. But the nearest platform was hundreds of miles away. One night, a deckhand recorded the signal. When he played it back, the words were clearer, but they weren't in any tongue he knew. They sounded like a plea, or maybe a warning. The recording cut off with a sound like rushing water, though the rig was still. The crew tried to stay calm. They were professionals, after all, but the rig felt wrong. Lights flickered at odd hours. The air grew heavy, like a storm was coming, though the weather stayed clear. One worker, a diver named Ethan, noticed something during a routine check. The underwater cables were frayed, but not by wear. The cuts were clean, almost deliberate. He swam deeper, following the damage. That's when he saw it. A shape in the murk. Too large to be a fish, too fluid to be a machine. It moved toward him fast. Ethan surfaced, gasping, refusing to dive again. He told the others it wasn't safe. The crew laughed, but their eyes were nervous. Days later, Ethan found something lodged in the rig's anchor chain. It was a piece of metal, rusted and barnacle-crusted, but etched with that same strange symbol from the deck. He showed it to the foreman, who dismissed it as debris. But Ethan kept it, hiding it in his bunk. That night, he woke to scratching sounds outside his door. Not footsteps, something sharper like claws on steel. He didn't open the door. In the morning, the scratches formed a pattern, a jagged circle that matched the symbol. Ethan packed his bag to leave. He never made it to the helicopter. His bunk was empty, the metal fragment gone. The crew started whispering about a curse. An old deckhand, who'd worked rigs for decades, shared a story from his youth. He'd heard of a rig in the Pacific that vanished in the 80s. No wreckage, no survivors. Just a single distress call, repeating one word. Below? He swore the same symbol had been found on that rig's remains, washed up years later. The crew didn't want to believe him, but the evidence was piling up. The radios kept humming with those eerie voices. The sonar started showing blips, shapes that appeared and vanished. And every night, the whispers grew louder, calling names. One worker, a technician named Lila, decided to dig deeper. She hacked into the company's old files, searching for the geologist's report. What she found was worse than she expected. The magnetic pulses weren't random. They matched a pattern, like a signal pulsing from the ocean floor. The company had known for years but kept drilling. Lila shared her findings with the crew. That night, the rig's power cut out. The emergency lights flickered, casting shadows that seemed to move on their own. Lila vanished in the chaos. Her laptop was found, its screen frozen on a single image, that curse symbol, glowing faintly. The company sealed the records. They called it an accident, blamed equipment failure. But the truth was slipping through the cracks. A diver from a nearby rig reported seeing lights underwater, pulsing in a rhythm that matched the whispers. He refused to go near Horizon's edge again. The fisherman's warning echoed in their minds. Don't go back out there. But something was already awake, and it wasn't done claiming what it wanted. If this story chilled you, the next one will linger even longer, pulling you toward a truth too vast to comprehend. The third tale begins with a salvage team, sent to recover what was left of Horizon's edge. They weren't told about the symbol or the whispers. They weren't told about the missing crews. All they knew was a job: retrieve the black box and leave. The rig loomed in the fog, its steel frame rusted overnight, as if years had passed. The team boarded, their boots echoing in the silence. They found the black box quickly, but it was damaged, its data corrupted. One file was intact, a voice recording. It was Clara, the mechanic from the first crew, whispering, "It's not the sea, it's what's under it." The recording ended with a sound like a heartbeat, slow and heavy, echoing from the deep. The salvage team noticed something else. The rig's walls were covered in scratches, hundreds of them, all forming that same jagged symbol. One worker, a veteran named Marcus, recognized it. He'd seen it before on a sunken ship he'd explored years ago. That ship had been abandoned, its crew gone, with no explanation. Marcus told the team to leave immediately. They ignored him, focused on their task. But as they worked, the rig groaned like it was alive. The water around them churned, though no storm was near. Marcus saw it first, a shadow in the waves, circling the rig. He grabbed the black box and ran. The team made it to their boat, but the shadow followed. Their radar showed a mass beneath them, moving too fast to track. The engine sputtered, then died. In the silence, they heard it, a low hum, like a chant, rising from the water. Marcus clutched the black box, whispering a prayer. The hum stopped. For a moment, they thought it was over. Then the water erupted and the shadow rose. It wasn't a creature, not exactly. It was a shape, vast and formless, with eyes that burned through the fog. The team screamed, but no one heard. Their boat was found days later, empty, drifting. The black box was gone. What was that shadow? Why did it take the cruise? The answers are buried in a truth too terrifying to face. Something lives in the deep, something older than the sea itself. It doesn't just watch. It waits. And when it calls, no one escapes. Yet the shadows only grew deeper. What surfaced next twisted reality itself. You thought the ocean was vast before, didn't you? But what if it's not just water out there? What if something ancient, something awake, is pulling strings from the deep? In our last tale, the Horizon's Edge crew vanished, leaving behind a cursed symbol and whispers from the sea. We ended with a question. What was the shadow that stalked the salvage team? It wasn't just a shape. It was a signal, a call from beneath the waves that tied every lost soul to a single, chilling truth. Let's unravel that paradox now, diving deeper into the abyss where the answers wait. But be warned, these stories will cling to you long after the night ends. The shadow wasn't a creature, not in the way we understand. It was a presence, a force that pulsed with the ocean's heartbeat. The salvage team's recording, the one from Clara, hinted at it. It's not the sea, it's what's under it. That was loophole one, the terrifying paradox we left dangling. The truth? The Horizon's Edge was built on a fault line, but not the kind geologists study. This was a fracture in reality, a place where the veil between our world and something older thins. The company knew. The geologist's report, buried in their files, warned of anomalous energy that spiked when they drilled. It wasn't oil they tapped. It was a doorway, and something stepped through. Let's pick up where we left off, with a new crew sent to investigate another rig. The Triton's Veil, stationed in the same cursed waters. This rig was different, newer, built to withstand anything, or so they thought. The crew arrived in the fall of 2023, weeks after Horizon's Edge went silent. Their mission was simple: monitor the site, collect data, and report back. But the moment they stepped onto the platform, the air felt wrong. Heavy, like it was pressing down on their chests. The radio's buzz was static, and the same symbol from Horizon's Edge was already there, scratched into the control room door. No one admitted to carving it. He was a skeptical type, always quick to dismiss ghost stories. But he couldn't ignore the log he found in the rig system. It wasn't a standard report. It was a journal, hidden in the code, written by someone from Horizon's Edge crew. The entry spoke of sound, a low hum that vibrated through the rig steel. It wasn't mechanical. It was alive. The final entry read, "The hum knows us. It's calling us by name." Samir laughed it off, but that night, he heard it. A deep, rhythmic pulse, like a heartbeat under the waves. He checked the sonar. It showed a mass, circling the rig, too vast to be anything natural. Samir told the others. They didn't believe him until the hum woke them at midnight. It wasn't just sound. It carried weight, like a voice whispering secrets they weren't meant to hear. The crew's engineer, Maya, traced the source to the drill site. The equipment was off, but the drill shaft was vibrating, as if something was moving through it. She found an old schematic buried in the rig's archives, showing the drill had pierced a cavern thousands of feet down. No one had mapped it. No one knew what was inside. But Maya saw something else in the schematic, a faint sketch of that cursed symbol, drawn in the margin like a warning. The hum grew louder each night. Tools started vanishing. A wrench left on a table was gone by morning. A diver's mask was found on the deck, covered in a slick, oily residue that smelled like decay. One worker, a cook named Javier, swore he saw a figure standing at the rig's edge, staring into the water. It wasn't human. Its limbs were too long, its movements too fluid. Javier blinked, and it was gone. He told the crew, his voice trembling. They searched the rig. Nothing. But the next day, Javier's station was empty. His apron lay folded, soaked in that same oily residue. The crew stopped laughing after that. Let's shift to the second story, about a researcher named Elena, sent to Triton's Vale to study the magnetic pulses. She wasn't part of the crew, just an outsider with a PhD and a knack for patterns. Elena noticed the pulses weren't random. They matched a rhythm, like a code. She cross-referenced them with old maritime logs and found something chilling. In the 1800s, a whaling ship had sunk in these waters. Its last log mentioned a black tide that rose without warning, swallowing the crew. The captain's final sketch? That same jagged symbol, drawn in ink that had turned to ash. Elena shared her findings with the crew. They didn't want to hear it, but she kept digging. She found forgotten folklore tale, passed down by coastal tribes, about a watcher in the deep. It wasn't a god or a monster, but something older, something that claimed those who disturbed its rest. The tale spoke of a ritual, a blood oath to appease it. Elena laughed at first. Rituals were for stories, not science. But then she found a photo in the rig's archives, taken during construction. It showed workers standing in a circle, their hands pressed to the deck where the symbol was carved. The photo was dated the day the rig's drill first broke ground. That night, Elena heard the hum. It wasn't just a sound anymore. It formed words, faint and guttural, in a language she couldn't understand. She recorded it, her hands shaking. When she played it back, the words were clearer. Give what is owed. She showed the crew. Panic set in. They wanted to leave, but the helicopter was delayed. The radios went dead. The sonar showed that mass again, closer now, circling faster. Elena found a new file on her laptop, one she hadn't created. It was a single image, the symbol glowing against a black background. Her laptop shut down. It never turned on again. If the hum was a call, who was answering? And why did the symbol keep appearing, not just on the rig, but in places it shouldn't? The crew found it scratched into their bunks, etched on tools, even burned into a loaf of bread in the galley. It wasn't human work. The lines were too precise, too deep, like they'd been carved by something with impossible strength. The crew's fear turned to dread. They weren't alone. Something was with them, marking its territory. But what did it want? That question will linger, pulling you toward the final truths in our next segment. The third story begins with a diver named Kale, the only one brave enough to check the drill shaft. He suited up, ignoring the crew's warnings. The water was cold, darker than it should have been. As he descended, his flashlight caught something, a structure not natural, not man-made. It was massive, covered in that oily residue, pulsing with faint light. Kale swore it moved, shifting like a living thing. He saw the symbol carved into it, glowing faintly. His radio crackled with a hum, louder now, chanting his name. Kale swam up, heart pounding. He never spoke of it again, but he quit the next day. The crew found something else that night, a reel of old footage, stored in a locked cabinet. It was grainy, dated years before the rig was built. It showed the ocean floor, filmed during a survey. The camera panned across a cavern, its walls etched with thousands of those symbols. In one frame, a shape moved, too fast, too vast. The footage cut off. The crew played it again, pausing on that frame. A silhouette was there, faint but undeniable, with eyes like burning oil. The reel burned out the projector, filling the room with the smell of scorched plastic. One worker, a mechanic named Tara, found a dossier in the foreman's office. It was marked classified, stamped with a government seal. It detailed a cover-up, a series of rigs that had vanished over decades, all in these waters. Each had reported the same symbol, the same hum. The dossier hinted at a pattern. Every rig that drilled too deep triggered something. Tara showed it to the crew. They didn't sleep that night. The hum was constant now, shaking the rig's walls. The sonar showed the mast directly beneath them, unmoving, waiting. The final straw came when the lights went out. The crew huddled in the control room, hearing scratches outside, sharp, rhythmic, like claws circling the rig. Tara's flashlight caught something. A silhouette on the deck, tall and fluid, its eyes glowing through the fog. It didn't move closer. It just watched. The crew locked the doors, but the scratches followed, carving that symbol into the steel. By morning, the silhouette was gone. But so was Tara. Her dossier was shredded. Its pages scattered across the deck, soaked in oily residue. The company shut down Triton's Veil the next day. They called it a technical failure. But the crew knew better. Something was awake, and it wasn't done. The hum, the symbol, the shadow, they were all pieces of a puzzle too vast for human minds. But the deepest horror still waited, pulsing beneath the final veil. The shadow, the disappearances, they weren't random. They were a ritual, one that started long before the rigs were built. The ocean floor where the drills pierced wasn't just rock. It was a seal, holding back a presence that's been waiting for centuries. When the rigs broke through, they didn't find oil. They found a gate, and the hum was its voice, calling for those who disturbed it. The crews didn't vanish by accident. They were chosen. Now, let's step into final stories, where the cosmic truth comes into focus. The first tale begins with a lone scientist, Dr. Nora Vale, sent to a research vessel called the Abyss Seeker in early 2024. The ship was stationed near the Triton's Veil site, tasked with studying the magnetic pulses that haunted the rigs. Nora was no stranger to the ocean's mysteries. She'd spent years chasing anomalies. But this was different. The moment her ship arrived, the water felt alive. Waves moved against the current, curling like fingers. The crew noticed it too. Their instruments flickered, showing impossible readings, depths that didn't exist, signals that pulsed in time with their heartbeats. And there, on the ship's hull, was that cursed symbol etched overnight. Nora found a log from the Triton's Veil, smuggled out by a worker before the rig was abandoned. It described the hum as a summons, a call that grew stronger with every drill strike. Nora cross-checked it with her data. The pulses weren't random. They formed a pattern like a language. She traced it to an ancient text, a sailor's journal from the 1700s, found in a coastal archive. It spoke of a dark tide that rose every century, claiming those who sailed too far. The journal's final page held a sketch of the symbol with a warning. It sees you when you see it. Nora's hands shook as she read it. That night, the hum began. The hum wasn't just sound. It carried weight, pressing into the crew's minds. They dreamed of a city under the waves, its spires glowing with that oily light. Nora recorded the hum, analyzing its frequency. It matched the pulses from the ocean floor, but it wasn't mechanical. It was alive, threading through their thoughts. One night, a deckhand named Liam vanished. His bunk was empty, his journal left open. It described a figure in his dreams, tall and fluid, with eyes like burning oil. The last line read, "It's calling me home." The crew found his shoes by the railing, soaked in that same oily residue from the rigs. The second story shifts to a salvage diver named Reza, hired to explore the wreckage of Horizon's Edge. The company wanted answers, but they didn't tell him about the symbol or the hum. Reza descended into the dark water, his flashlight cutting through the murk. The rig's remains were wrong. Steel twisted like it had been melted, then frozen in unnatural shapes. He found the drill shaft, its mouth wide open, leading to a cavern below. The walls were covered in symbols, thousands of them pulsing faintly. Reza's radio crackled. The hum came through, chanting his name. He swam up, heart racing, but something followed, a shadow too vast a measure. Back on the surface, Reza told his team. They didn't believe him until they reviewed his camera footage. It showed the cavern, but something else was there, a silhouette moving through the water, its eyes locked on the camera. The footage cut off, replaced by static that hummed with that same rhythm. Reza refused to dive again, but he couldn't shake the dreams. They showed him standing in that underwater city, surrounded by shadows that whispered his name. He found a mark on his arm one morning, faint but unmistakable, the symbol etched like a scar. He quit the job, but the hum followed him home. The third story brings us to a whistleblower named Aisha, a former company analyst who uncovered the truth. She'd been fired after digging too deep into the Horizon's Edge files. Aisha had a dossier, stolen from the company's servers, detailing a cover-up spanning decades. It listed rigs, ships, even fishing boats that vanished in those waters. All reported the symbol, the hum, the shadows. The dossier mentioned a classified project, codenamed Deep Veil, to map the ocean floor. The project was shut down after divers reported seeing a structure, a city not built by human hands. Its walls were alive, shifting, covered in that cursed symbol. Aisha leaked the dossier to a journalist, but it never reached the public. The journalist vanished, her notes found scattered on a beach, soaked in oily residue. Aisha went into hiding, but she kept researching. She found a pattern. Every 100 years, the disappearances spiked. The last spike was in 1923, when a lighthouse near the rig sites went dark. Its keeper's log described a black tide that rose, swallowing the coast. The final entry was a sketch of the symbol with a note. It's not the sea, it's the door. Aisha realized the rigs had triggered the next cycle. The hum was the signal, and the symbol was the key. The cosmic truth hits here, reframing every story. The rigs didn't just disturb the ocean floor. They open a gate to something beyond our world, a presence that doesn't live or die, but waits. The symbol wasn't a warning. It was a claim, marking those who saw it. The hum wasn't a sound. It was a call, pulling the chosen toward that underwater city. The crews, the divers, the whistleblower, they weren't victims of a curse. They were sacrifices, part of a ritual older than humanity. The company knew fragments of this truth, but hid it, drilling deeper for profit. Unaware they were feeding the gate. The final revelation comes from a lost transmission, found by a hacker tracking the Abyss Seeker signals. It was Nora, whispering from the research vessel, her voice breaking. It's not one thing. It's many. They're waking up. The transmission cut off with a sound like 1,000 voices chanting, layered over the hum. The hacker traced the signal's source, not the ship, but the ocean floor miles below. The city was there, glowing alive, its spires reaching up like claws. The symbol was its signature, and the hum was its pulse. Those who heard it were already part of it. If you dare to trace the next truth, there's a link waiting, a dossier of forbidden knowledge that dives deeper into the abyss. Don't just watch. Search. The answers are out there, hidden in the shadows of the sea. But be careful. The ocean is listening. What does it mean to be chosen? Why does the symbol appear in places it shouldn't? On ships, in dreams, even in the lines of your hand. The rigs are silent now, but the hum never stops. It's out there, waiting for the next crew, the next voice to answer its call. And as you sleep tonight, with the waves whispering beyond your window, ask yourself, what's really down there, watching from the deep?